Chapter 3 of Potash and Perlmutter, Their Co-Partnership Ventures and Adventures. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Marianne. Potash and Perlmutter, Their Co-Partnership Ventures and Adventures by Montague Glass. Chapter 3. When Mr. Siegmund Lowenstein, proprietor of O'Gorman Henderson Dry Goods Company of Galveston, Texas, entered Potash and Perlmutter's showroom, he expected to give only a small order. Mr. Lowenstein usually transacted his business with Abe Potash, who was rather conservative in matters of credit extension, more especially since Mr. Lowenstein was reputed to play auction pinochle with poor judgment and for high stakes. Therefore, Mr. Lowenstein intended to buy a few staples, specialties of Potash and Perlmutter, and to reserve the balance of his spring orders for other dealers who entertained more liberal credit notions than did Abe Potash. Much to his gratification, however, he was greeted by Morris Perlmutter. "Ah, Mr. Perlmutter," he said, "glad to see you. Is Mr. Potash in?" "He's home sick today," Morris replied. Mr. Lowenstein chuckled sympathetically. "You don't say so," he murmured. "That's too bad. What seems to be the trouble?" "He's been feeling mean all the winter," Morris replied. "The doctor says he needs a rest." "That's always the way with them hard-working fellers," Mr. Lowenstein went on. "I'm feeling pretty sick myself, I assure you, Mr. Perlmutter. I've been working early and late in my store. We never put in such a season before, and we've done a phenomenal holiday business. We took stock last week, and we're quite cleaned out. I bet you we ain't got stuck a single garment in any line, cloaks, suits, clothing, or furs." "I'm glad to hear it," Morris said. "And we expect this season will be a crackerjack too," he continued. "I had to give a few emergency orders to jobbers down south before I left Galveston. We had such an early rush of spring trade." "Is that so?" Morris commented. "I wish we could say the same in New York." "You don't tell me," Mr. Lowenstein rejoined. "Why, I was over by Garfunkel and Levy just now, and Mr. Levy says he's almost too busy. I looked over their line, and I may place an order with them, although they ain't got too good an assortment, Mr. Perlmutter." "Far be it from me to knock a competitor's line, Mr. Lowenstein," Morris commented, "but I honestly think they get their designers off Ellis Island." "Well," Mr. Lowenstein conceded, "of course I don't say they got so good an assortment what you have, Mr. Perlmutter, but they got a liberal credit policy." "Why, what's the matter with our credit policy?" Morris asked. "Nothing," Mr. Lowenstein replied. "Only a merchant like me, who wants to enlarge his business, needs a little better terms than 30 days. Ain't it? I'm improving my departments all the time, and I got to buy more fixtures, lay in a better stock, and even build a new wing to my store building. All this costs money, Mr. Perlmutter, as you know, and contractors must be paid strictly for cash. Under the circumstances, I need ready money, and naturally, the house what gives me the most generous credit gets my biggest order." "Excuse me for a moment," Morris broke in. "I think I hear the telephone." He went to the rear of the store, where the telephone bell had been trilling impatiently. "Hello," he said, taking the receiver off the hook. "Hello," said a voice from the other end of the line. "Is this Potash and Perlmutter?" "It is," said Morris. "Well, this is Garfunkel and Levy," the voice went on. "We understand Mr. Lowenstein of Galveston is in your store. Will you please and call him to the phone for a minute?" "This ain't no public pay station," Morris cried. "And besides, Mr. Lowenstein just left here." He banged the receiver into the hook and returned at once to the front of the store. "Now, Mr. Lowenstein," he said, "what can I do for you?" And 2 hours later Mr. Lowenstein left the store with the duplicate of a $2,400 order in his pocket, deliveries to commence within 5 days, terms 90 days net. "Well, Abe," Morris said the next day, as his partner, Abe Potash, entered the showroom, "how are you feeling today?" "Mean, Mawruss," Abe replied. "I feel mean. The doctor says I need a rest. He says I got to go away to the country, or I will maybe break down." "Is that so?" said Morris, deeply concerned. "Well, then, you'd better go right away, before you get real serious sick. Why not fix it so you can go away tomorrow yet?" "Tomorrow!" Abe exclaimed. "It don't go so quick as all that, Mawruss. You can't believe everything the doctors tell you. I ain't exactly dead yet, Mawruss. I'm like the feller what everybody says is going to fail, Mawruss. They give him till after Christmas to bust up, and then he does a fine holiday trade, And the first thing you know, Mawruss, he's buying real estate. No, Mawruss, I feel pretty mean, I admit, but I think a good $2,000 order would put me all right again, and so long as we won't have no more trouble with designers, Mawruss, I guess I would stay right too." "Well, if that's the case," said Morris, beaming all over, "I guess I can fix you up. Sigmund Lowenstein, of Galveston, was in here yesterday, and I sold him a $2,400 order, including them 4022s. And you know as well as I do, Abe, them 4022s is stickers. We got 'em in stock now over 2 months, ever since Abe Magnus of Nashville turned 'em back on us." Abe's reception of the news was somewhat disappointing to Morris. He showed no elation, but selected a slightly damaged cigar from the K2O first and second credit customers box and lit it deliberately before replying. "How much was that last order he gave us, Mawruss?" he asked. $400, Morris replied. "And what terms?" Abe continued. 5 off 30 days. "And what terms did you quote him yesterday?" asked Abe inexorably. 90 days. Net," Morris murmured. Abe puffed vigorously at his cigar, and there was a long and significant silence. "I should think, Abe," Morris said at length, "the doctor wouldn't let you smoke cigars if you was nearly breaking down." "So long as you sell $2,400 at 90 days to a crook and a gambler like Sigmund Lowenstein, Mawruss," Abe replied, "one cigar more or less won't hurt me. If I can stand a piece of news like that, Mawruss, I guess I can stand anything. Why didn't you give him 30 days dating, too, Mawruss?" At once Morris plunged into a long account of the circumstances attending the giving of Mr. Lowenstein's order, including the telephone message from Garfunkel and Levy, and at its conclusion Abe grew somewhat mollified. "Well, Mawruss," he said, "we took the order, and I suppose we got to ship it. When you deal with a gambler like Lowenstein, you've got to take a gambler's chance. Anyhow, I ain't going to worry about it, Mawruss. Next week I'm going away for a fortnight." "Where are you going, Abe?" Morris replied. "To Dotyville, Pennsylvania," Abe replied. "We leave next Saturday. In the meantime I ain't going to worry, Mawruss." "That's right, Abe," said Morris. "Sure it's right," Abe rejoined. "I'm going to leave you to do the worrying. And in the meantime I guess I'll look after getting out them 4022s. Them 4022s, them plum color empires, was your idea, Mawruss. You said they'd make a hit with the Southern trade, Mawruss, and I hope they do, Mawruss, for if they don't there ain't much chance of our getting paid for them." A week later Abe Potash and his wife left for Dotyville, Pennsylvania, and 2 days afterward Morris received the following letter: Doty's Union House, Dotyville, Pennsylvania. Dear Morris, how is things in the store? We got here the day before yesterday, and I have got enough already. It is a dead town. The food what they give us reminds me when Princess Vessel and me were partners together as new beginners, and I was making Southern trips by $1.50 a day houses, American plan. The man Doty what keeps the hotel also runs the general store also. He says a fellow by the name of Levy used to run it, but he couldn't make it go. He made a failure of it. I tried to sell him a few garments, but he claimed to be overstocked at present, and I believe him. I seen some styles what he tries to get rid of it, what me and Princess Vessel made up in small lots way before the Spanish War already. It is a dead town. Me and Rosie leave tonight for Pittsburgh, and we are going to stay with Rosie's brother-in-law, Hyman Margolius. Write us how things is going in the store to the Outlet Auction House, Hyman Margolius, Prop 2132 4 and 6, North Potter Ash, Pittsburgh, PA. You should see that Miss Cohen billed them 4022s on date we packed them, as Goldman, the shipping clerk, forgot to give them to Arrow Dispatch when they called. That ain't our fault, Morris. Write and tell me how things is going in the store, and don't forget to tell Miss Cohen about the bill to S. Lowenstein as above. Yours truly, A. Potash. P.S. How is things in the store? During the first 3 days of Abe Potash's vacation he had traveled by train 120 miles to Dotyville, and unpacked and packed 2 trunks under the shrill and capacious supervision of Mrs. Potash. Then followed a tiresome journey to Pittsburgh with 2 changes of cars, and finally, on the morning of the 4th day, at 7:30 sharp, he accompanied Hyman Margolius to the latter's place of business. There he took off his coat and helped Hyman and his staff of assistants to pile up and mark for auction a large consignment of clothing. After this, he called off the lot numbers while Hyman checked them in a first draft of a printed catalogue, and at 1 o'clock, with hands and face all grimy from contact with the ill-dyed satinettes of which the clothing was manufactured, he partook of a substantial luncheon at Beistift's restaurant and lunchroom. "Well, Abe," Hyman said, "how do you like the auction business, so far as you've gone yet?" "It's a good live business, Hymie," Abe replied, "but the way it works out, it ain't always on the square. A fellow who wants to do his creditors buys goods in New York, we'll say, for his business in Galveston, we'll say, and then when he gets the goods he don't even bother to unpack 'em, Hymie, but ships 'em right away to you, and you examine 'em, and if they're all O.K., why you send him a check for about half what it costs to manufacture 'em. Then he pockets the check, Hymie, and 10 days later busts up on the poor sucker what sold him the goods in New York at 90 days. Ain't that right, Hymie?" "Why, that's the funniest thing you ever seen!" Hymie exclaimed. "What's the funniest thing I ever seen, Hymie?" "You talking about Galveston, for instance." Abe turned pale and choked on a piece of Rosbraten. "What do you mean?" he gasped. "Why," said Hyman, "I just received a consignment of garments from a fellow called Lowenstein in Galveston. He wrote me he was overstocked." "Overstocked?" Abe cried. "Overstocked? What color was them garments?" "Why, they was a kind of plum color," said Hyman. Abe put his hand to his throat and eased his collar. "And did you send him a check for 'em yet?" he croaked. "Not yet," said Hyman. Abe grabbed him by the collar. "Come," he said. "Come quick by a lawyer." "What for?" Hyman asked. "You're pulling the coat all out of shape yet." "I'll buy you another one," Abe cried. "Them plum-colored garments is mine, and I want to get 'em back." Hyman paid the bill, and on their way down the street they passed a telegraph office. "Wait," Abe cried. "I must send Mawruss a wire." He entered and seized a telegraph form, which he addressed to Potash and Perlmutter. "Don't ship no more goods to Lowenstein, Mawruss. Will explain by letter tonight," he wrote. "Now, Hymie," he said, after he had paid for the dispatch, "we go by your lawyer." 5 minutes later they were closeted with Max Marcus, senior member of the firm Marcus, Weinschneck and Grab, and a lodge brother of Hymie Margolius. Max made a specialty of amputation cases. He was accustomed to cashing missing arms and legs at $1,000 apiece for the victims of rolling mill and railway accidents, and when the sympathetic jury brought in their generous verdict, Max paid the expert witnesses and pocketed the net proceeds. These rarely fell below $5,000. "Sit down, Hymie. Glad to see you, Mr. Potash," said Max, stroking a small gray mustache with a 5-carat diamond ring. "What can I do for you?" "I've got some goods belonging to Mr. Potash, what a feller called Lowenstein in Galveston, Texas, shipped me," said Hymie, "and Mr. Potash wants to get 'em back." "Replevin, eh?" Max said. "That's a little bit out of my line, but I guess I can fix you up." He rang for a stenographer. "Take this down," he said to her, and turned to Abe Potash. "Now, tell us the facts." Abe recounted the tale Mr. Lowenstein had related to Morris Perlmutter, by which Lowenstein made it appear that he was completely out of stock. Next, Hyman Margolius produced Sigmund Lowenstein's letter, which declared that Lowenstein was disposing of the Empire cloaks because he was overstocked. "'S'enough," Max declared. "Tell Mr. Weinschenk to work it up into an affidavit," he continued to the stenographer, "and bring us in a jurat." A moment later she returned with a sheet of legal cap, on the top of which was typewritten, "Sworn to before me this first day of April, 1904." "Sign opposite the brace," said Max, pushing the paper at Abe. Abe scrawled his name where indicated. "Now, hold up your right hand," said Max, and Abe obeyed. "Do you solemnly swear that the affidavit subscribed by you is true?" Max went on. "What affidavit?" Abe asked. "Why, the one Weinschneck is going to draw up when he comes back from lunch, of course," Max replied. "Sure, it's true," said Abe. "All right," Max concluded briskly. "Now give me a check for $50 for my fees, $5 for a surety company bond, and $5 sheriff's fees, and I'll get out a replevin order on the strength of that affidavit in half an hour, and have a deputy around to the store at 3 o'clock to transfer the goods from Hymie to you." $60 is pretty high for a little thing like that, ain't it, Max? Said Hymie. High? Max cried indignantly. High? Why, if you wasn't a lodge brother of mine, Hymie, I wouldn't have stirred a hand for less than 100. Thus rebuked, Abe paid over the $60, and Hymie and he went back to the store. Precisely at 3 a deputy sheriff entered the front door and flashed a gold badge as big as a dinner plate. His stay was brief, and in 5 minutes he had relieved Abe of all his spare cigars and departed, leaving only a certified copy of the replevin order and a strong smell of whiskey to signalize the transfer of the Empire gowns from Hymie to Abe. Hardly had he banged the door behind him when a messenger boy entered and handed a telegram to Abe. Ain't shipped no goods but the 4022s, it read. Have wired Lowenstein to return the 4022s. Morris. Fine, fine, Abe exclaimed. He tipped the boy a dime and was about to acquaint Hymie with the good news when another messenger boy entered and delivered a second telegram to Abe. It read as follows. Lowenstein wires he insists on delivery entire order complete, otherwise he will sue. What shall I wire him? Morris. Abe seized his hat and dashed down the street to the telegraph office. Give me a blank, he said to the operator, who handed him a whole padful. For the next 20 minutes Abe scribbled and tore up by turns until he finally evolved a satisfactory missive. This he handed to the operator, who read it with a broad grin and passed it back at once. What do you take me for? He said. A bum? Dear's ladies in the main office. Abe glared at the operator and began again. Here, he said to the operator, after another quarter of an hour of scribbling and tearing up, send this. It was in the following form. Don't send no more goods to Lowenstein. Ditto, 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 wires, ditto, nobody. 14 words, the operator said. 54 cents. What's that? Abe cried. What are you trying to do? Make money on me? That ain't no 14 words. That's 9 words. Is it, eh? The operator rejoined. Quit your kiddin'. That's 14 words. Ditto marks don't go, see? You're a fresh young feller, said Abe, paying over 54 cents, and I got a good mind to report you to the head office. The operator laughed raucously. G'wan, he said, beat it, or I'll sick the cops onto yer. It's against the law to cuss in Pittsburgh, even by telegraph. When Abe returned to the outlet auction house's store, Hyman was busy stacking up the plum-colored gowns in piles convenient for shipping. Well, Abe, he said, I thought you was here for a vacation. You're doing some pretty tall hustling for a sick man, I must say. I'll tell you the truth, Hymie, Abe replied. I ain't got no time to be sick. It ain't 3:30 yet, and I guess I'll take a couple of them garments and see what I can do with the jobbing and retail trade in this here town. Don't you think you better take it easy for a while, Abe? Hyman suggested. I am taking it easy, said Abe. So long as I ain't working, I'm resting, ain't it, Hymie? And you know as well as I do, Hymie, selling goods never was work to me. It's a pleasure, Hymie, I assure you. He placed 2 of the plum-colored Empire gowns under his arm, and thrusting his hat firmly on the back of his head, made straight for the dry goods district. 2 hours later he returned, wearing a broad smile that threatened to engulf his stubby black mustache between his nose and his chin. Hymie, he said, I'm sorry I got to disturb that nice pile you made of them garments. I'll get right to work myself and assort the sizes. Why, what's the trouble now, Abe? Hyman asked. I disposed of 'em, Hymie, Abe replied. 200 to Hamburg and Weiss, 300 to the Capital Credit Outfitting Company, and 500 down to Feinroth and Pearl. Hold on there, Abe, Hymie exclaimed. You only got 600, and you sold 1,000 garments. I know, Hymie, said Abe, but I'm going home tomorrow, and I got a month in which to ship the balance. Going home? Hyman cried. Sure, said Abe. I had a good long vacation, and now I got to get down to business. One morning, 2 weeks later, Abe sat with his feet cocked up on his desk in the showroom of Potash and Perlmutter's spacious cloak and suit establishment. Between his teeth he held a fine Pittsburgh cheroot at an angle of about 95 degrees to his protruding upper lip, and he perused with relish the business trouble column of the Daily Cloak and Suit Record. Now, what do you think of that? He exclaimed. What do I think of what, Abe? Morris inquired. For answer, Abe thrust the paper toward his partner with one hand and indicated a scare headline with the other. Fraudulent bankruptcy in Galveston, it read. A petition in bankruptcy was filed yesterday against Sigmund Lowenstein, doing business as O'Gorman Henderson Dry Goods Company in Galveston, Texas. When the federal receiver took charge of the bankrupt's premises, they were apparently swept clean of stock and fixtures. It is understood that Lowenstein has fled to Matamoros, Mexico, where his wife preceded him some 2 weeks ago. The liabilities are estimated at $50,000, and the only asset is the store building, which is valued at $10,000 and is subject to mortgages aggregating about the same amount. The majority of the creditors are in New York City and Boston. Morris returned the paper to his partner without comment. "You see, Mawruss," said Abe, as he lit a fresh cheroot, "sometimes it pays to be sick. Ain't it?" End of chapter 3.